as 2019 starts to wrap up, it gets me to kind of thinking about the year in self-publishing, all the things that came and went, and some of the new stuff and some of the old stuff and some of the stuff that just would grind your freaking gears. We're going to talk about all of that in today's episode 36 of Self-Publishing with Dale. So make sure you stick around. This is episode 36, and I'm so pumped to say that. 36 freaking episodes. And if you've been around since day one, I definitely appreciate all the support and the love. And of course, I want to give a big quick shout out over to our sponsors, Vexels. They are a graphic design company that has hundreds of thousands of illustrations and graphic designs for you, the self-publisher. You can use it for, say, for instance, your cover design. You can use it for your interiors. Heck, if you wanted to do like a coloring book, you can do that as well. There's so many options that are available to you for hundreds of thousands of images for a fraction of the cost that you would normally get through another graphic design company. You want to find out more about Vexels, make sure that you head on over to the affiliate link of dalelinks.com/Vexels. Again, you want to support the show? Do me a favor, visit dalelinks.com/Vexels. Definitely appreciate those folks there. And they're the last sponsors of the year, so big kudos over to them. So let's talk about the year in review. Listen, just to kind of give a heads up, I've already told people over on Twitch. I'm starting to tell you inside your ear holes right now, if you're listening to me, this is going to be the last podcast of the year. I'm going to be taking a break for about a couple of weeks, but we're going to return back in January, and we're going to have a release every Monday. So just hang in there. If you're jonesing for another episode, I'll be back at the helm, and we're going to have a lot more fun in the coming year. I'm sure of it. And speaking of fun, boy, this has been one heck of a year. And as I kind of reflected on it, Kelly and I actually sat down and spoke with each other. Now, if you don't know who Kelly is my wife, and she's also in the self-publishing business. So we talk shop all the time. So we kind of sat there and thought about all of the big things that happened throughout the course of 2019, and so much stuff. And I'm sure I probably forgot a few things, but I grabbed the top 10 specific things I can think of right away that I'm like, oh man, that was really a game changer. So let's go ahead and just get it started out with number one. And by the way, this is a no order of appearance or importance. Okay, I'm just kind of just threw out some stuff, so I'm just brain dumping here on you folks. So the very first one I think about is how Vellum is the ebook creation software that's available exclusively for Mac. And they actually do the formatting for you. So it's not like, say, for instance, a Scrivener or Ulysses, where you can actually go into it and create the manuscript, like write the content, but you can actually write the content, bring it to Vellum, and it formats it for you. Well, they just stopped supporting Mobi. They actually used to do EPUB, Mobi, and PDF. Now it's just EPUB and PDF. I know that they're pretty much a skeleton crew that works with Vellum. Like there's just like a couple of people that work in the company. So I imagine maybe it just became too much of a heartache to try to support something like that. But in any event, that was I'd say this is probably the smallest news I'm going to give you today. I actually learned that through the podcast of, it's easy for me to remember here, Sell More Books podcast with Brian Cohen and Jim Krukrul. I actually learned about this a couple weeks ago, how Vellum just kind of dropped that support. So there is that, and they don't look like they're going to be, expanding at all, not like they're going to be adding anything to that. So the next option here would be Audible captions. Oh man, this was probably one of the biggest items. I probably should have saved this for last, but you know what? We're going to go ahead and talk about it anyways. It was about July to August. It was actually late July, early August that Audible just announced to the world. They said, we're going to start adding captions to the audiobooks automatically. Don't sweat it. We covered it for you, authors. And everybody's kind of going, wait, hang on. You're doing audiobooks. Why the heck are you adding captions to it without our permission or without even compensation? And so this turned into a dumpster fire. So it had all authors up in arms. This wasn't just indie authors. This was trade published authors as well. In fact, the big five trade published companies, the traditional publishing companies, and a couple other smaller publishing houses actually got together with the Association of American Publishers and filed suit against Amazon for doing this. And they were able to stop the release, and it was sometime in September where they were expecting to roll out these captions. And so it eventually came out to where Amazon backed down and they said, okay, we're only going to do it on select publications. Rather ambiguous, if you ask me. But then again, we also look at the fact that, and this is something I didn't add to the newsworthy items, is Audible put out a new program called, oh gosh, darn it. It's an exclusive with Audible. So essentially, Audible produced Audible Originals. There we go. That's the name. It's easy for me to remember. But at any rate, Audible Originals is almost like when Amazon Prime rolls out something, or Hulu or Netflix. They have their unique programming. Well, Audible's doing the same thing that's in house, and it's going to be for them. So I imagine the captions are probably just going to be reserved for that. But I don't want to speak out of turn because I haven't yet to look at my own publications to see if there were captions that were added to it. Yeah, Audible was making a little bit of noise here and ruffling a few feathers, and they felt like they were servicing the greater good because they were providing captions. And even the president of Audible even came out and said, like, hey, we're doing this to help out with literacy. And that's great. That's a good, just cause. But the problem is he didn't involve the creatives in this. He didn't involve the rights holders in on this. And so that's his biggest undoing. And if they're going to roll out something like this, I'd recommend that they put it into the contracts as people get ready to publish through Audible. Make it to where it's like, okay, this is available. If you don't want it, you can opt out or don't publish with us at all. And to me, I think it's kind of a cool feature, but it'd be nice if they would just monetize that. So in other words, charge a bit more for the Audible books with the captioning, and then compensate the rights holders that much additional amount. All right, so the next newsworthy item, and it is the no content book publishing explosion. Now, I've actually been in no content book publishing since about late 2015, early 2016. I really went bullish on it in 2016 to 2017, and my wife and I made a significant income from this. Now, if you're not familiar with no content book publishing, let me go ahead and just explain it very briefly. No content book publishing is like producing notebooks, diaries, journals, things like that. It is not to be confused with fiction and nonfiction writing. It's a complete different beast altogether. It's like having stationery, office supplies, things like that. And if you're a traditional writer and you're like, oh no, this is a scam. No, it's not a scam. It's a completely different product. None of the no content book publishers are trying to put you out of business or take money out of your pocket. In fact, it's coming from a completely different pocket altogether. So no content books really exploded. I mean, it just became ginormous. And as I've done even more research, as I'm doing topics over on YouTube or over, for things like this podcast, I go through and I try to do some research. And it's so funny that I'm starting to discover all these new quote unquote experts in no content book publishing. And yet I've never heard of these people. They've never been around. There's no way to track whether or not these people are effective at what they've done. You just got to kind of take their word on it. And it slays me. And I imagine you go into 2020 and see, now I say this last week in the 2020 predictions, that no content book publishing is going to change going into 2020. I sense it. I can feel it in my bones. This is how the Kindle publishing rush felt like towards the end around 2015, because July of 2015 is when things changed for the whole Kindle publishing rush, because they ended up changing out the payout structure for the KDP Select program. And when that happened, people were like, deuces, we're out of here. And just rats like fleeing off a sinking ship. You could just see them in just scores of these would-be self-publishers leaving the business. And I would imagine there's going to be something pretty big that's going to roll out. So just I've warned you. I've said this a few times before. All right, here's an interesting one now. These guys continue to just change the business, and they continue to do so. But it is Publish Drive. And there's a couple of newsworthy, significant things about Publish Drive. First of all, they rolled out a new subscription-based model, and they removed rev share. Now, when I say rev share, it's revenue share. So in other words, when you go through aggregate publishing, so like a Drafted Digital or Smashwords or originally Publish Drive, they would take a percentage of profits, net profits that come in from each one of the avenues. So for instance, Publish Drive would take 10% of all of your profits that came in from the various different avenues, and you collect 90%. It's not a bad deal. However, there's some people that would argue with that because even speaking with a couple of the insiders in this business of aggregate publishing, one of the big sticking points is for authors that start to grow big and get a massive brand, they start to lose money hand and fist by having that 10% taken out. So Publish Drive was like, wait, instead of us losing all these big authors and lots of money, why don't we see about striking out revenue share and just say, hey, it's a subscription-based model, and based on the number of books you have uploaded to our platform, we will charge you accordingly. Now, I can go into the numbers on this, but unfortunately, I can't remember any off the top of my head. So if you're new to Publish Drive, you can upload your first book free. So that means you get 100% of all your net profits from all the various avenues when you publish to Publish Drive with one single book. So it's still free for one book. I don't know how much longer they're going to keep it, but according to them, they said it's going to be pretty much there indefinitely. And then the upgraded version is like 5 books, and I think it might be like $10 per month, which that's not bad. I mean, you think about that. You know, if you're making, for instance, if that's 10%, if you're doing about $100 in sales per month, you can justify the expense because now you're not having to pay that 10% or aggregate distribution. And some people can probably make the argument, well, you can upload it to the different platforms. That's easy for you to say. If you like to do that and you like to nickel and dime your time like that, that's all you. For me, I'd rather have one dashboard, one tax form, one person who's going to manage all those things for me. And that's why I do aggregate publishing. Now, the other thing that rolled out wasn't as big and newsworthy or groundbreaking in my opinion, but I did share it on my YouTube channel, and was how Publish Drive actually rolled out something called Abacus. So if you function as a small publishing house and you're splitting rights with another author, so let's say you're doing a co-authoring type thing and you're managing all of the assets and you're managing all the finances, Abacus was kind of a way of getting it to where you're more public facing with the co-creators, and you can actually share some of the revenue and how you're going to be splitting it up from a month-to-month basis. And Abacus actually works with KDP, works with ACX, it works with just pretty much any kind of publishing model. And you just upload the reports and it spits it out and it shows you how you're supposed to break those things down. You had ads, you'd put in the ads there, and you'd split up that amount between you and the co-creator, however you wanted to do it. But Abacus runs, and I can't remember, it might be like $5, $10 per month per book. And it can be kind of nice because you have something, again, that's a little bit more, I wouldn't call it public facing, but more open, more transparent with the person that you're co-creating with. So I've yet to try Abacus. They offered me numerous times to use it for free, but I just, I looked at some of the features and I was like, okay, this makes sense. Alrighty, so the very next item here, we're halfway through the list, by the way, folks. It's going to be a longer podcast. Hopefully you got yourself a cup of coffee here. Number 5, Google Play Books wants direct contact. They actually rolled this out earlier this year, and there was rumblings going around about February to March that they were going to be requiring that anybody who was publishing through the Google Play Books platform be directly responsible, meaning that they would no longer take any of the aggregate publishers unless they fulfilled a couple of things. So this meant that Publish Drive, Drafted Digital, who just added Google Play, anybody else that added Google Play for distribution on their platform, they had to be added as an account manager and through Google Play Books. So this was kind of nice for some people that didn't have access to Google Play Books, because they were able to get access to Google Play Books and then offer that admin access to the aggregators. It was took me 10 minutes probably to let Publish Drive manage all my Google Play Book stuff. But the issue is, for someone like a Drafted Digital, it just didn't make sense. Now, unfortunately, I don't have insider information, nor did I talk to any of the Drafted Digital team, but I know how they function. They held off on Google Play Books for a long time. They had them for a minute, and then they were gone. And then they had them again, and then they roll out, Google Play Books rolls out this direct contact clause. Look, you got to be directly responsible unless you have somebody that's managing the account as the aggregator. And Drafted Digital just deuced out. They're like, nah, we're good. Because it was already on a 52% royalty structure. So it was already kind of small as it was. And then they were asking for these aggregators to jump through additional hoops. This was more things for that aggregator to kind of manage. I know Publish Drive had a real hassle trying to move a lot of authors to doing some of this stuff. And, kind of makes a person say, well, why don't I just go ahead and just upload directly to Google Play Books and just skip the aggregator if that's the case? For me, like I said, I only want one person to manage just one avenue. So there were some people that just said, I'm good. I don't need the aggregators. I'm going to go directly to Google Play Books. And some people just said, screw Google Play Books. And hopefully you aren't one of them, because I'm going to tell you, Google Play pays a nice little paycheck to me every month. I'm not going to say that I'm going to be buying a Mercedes-Benz anytime soon, but it's a nice little chunk of change. We're just going to kind of put it that way. So, all right, speaking of Draft to Digital, Draft to Digital still in beta for print. They actually have print available, and they've actually had it for, gosh, it seems like they're going on a couple of years now. But it has been forever stuck in beta. Now, Draft to Digital, come on, guys. Aren't you offering your boy access to print? Yeah, that's right. I would utilize this avenue, and I would give you guys a good platform to share it with other people, but you haven't given me the opportunity. I've applied for it twice, and I've just given up. And I'm going to say this right now. Actually, I've had a couple of insiders, some people who do have access to it, that were fairly underwhelmed by the Draft to Digital print beta. They said that you have to kick up the cost considerably because the print fees are just exorbitant. It almost makes sense to just go through KDP or elsewhere because the print quality is okay from what I understand. Again, this is all secondhand information. I don't know any of this stuff. Draft to Digital, if you'd give me some love here, give me some access, I can at least give more of an informed decision or more informed insights on this. But I hear that's still in beta, and it's probably in beta for good reason, because Draft to Digital is known to be very much in line and in thought of the indie author. They want to make sure you guys are taken care of. And maybe they're not quite confident about their print product just yet. And so they're probably acutely aware of the fact that their print product is too expensive and maybe it's not the best quality yet. So hang in there. I imagine big things coming out in 2020. The first aggregate publisher, that rolls out with print beta beyond Ingram, Spark, or Lulu is going to really set themselves apart from the rest of the pack. So Smashwords, Draft to Digital, and Publish Drive. I'm talking to you. Step it up. Let's see which one of you can do print beta. Speaking of print beta, I had an interview with Publish Drive CEO Kinga Gentetics on my YouTube channel, and I'd asked her last time of this year, when's print going to roll out? She said, it's going to be in a couple weeks. No print and beta yet, so we haven't heard anything from you, Publish Drive. Let's see about getting on that little bandwagon there. See about getting yourself some print choices available. All right, so number 7. This one actually was kind of a sad one. Playster closes its doors. Well, this one I kind of just got pocket change from, and I used that through Draft to Digital was actually where I had distributed through Playster. Playster was a subscription-based model, something like a KDP Select Kindle Unlimited program. And when people borrowed those books, you were rewarded according to a large pool. But not all good things last forever, and Playster had to close its doors. But one of the oddest things happened for me personally. I'm not sure if this happened to you. I ended up getting like a substantial payout, like all at once from Playster, which is just weird. But maybe it's just one of those cases that a lot of people had borrowed my books, and Playster was like, here, we're just going to pay you out whatever people have checked out at the moment. So could be that. I don't know. Playster, if you got answers, I'd definitely love to hear from you. Hit me up at Dale at selfpublishingwithdale.com. All right, here's the number 8 piece here. AMS ads, or also known as Amazon advertising, now rolls out UK and Germany. Oh, yeah, I speculated this for a long time. I mean, even before my podcasting days, I actually said this on the YouTube channel, that Amazon likes your money. They like money, and they like to make more money. And they want you to run ads so that way those ads are delivered to their customers that will end up buying your stuff and making money for you and for them. So it's going to be inevitable that ads is going to be supported across the board, across every region from one single dashboard. It's not technically one dashboard because you have to get it through different regions, but for one publisher. So if you got a KDP account, you can get yourself US, UK, and Germany access for Amazon ads. And I've actually started dabbling and already been using UK ads to some pretty moderate success. In Germany, I just started running one about a couple of months ago, and it's it's actually functioning in the black, so I'm pretty happy about that. I need to start to scale that up. Speaking of Amazon advertising, they rolled out feature after feature after feature. They changed the look of the dashboard. They made it a little bit more easy to find things. They actually created ad groups, which made it to where it wasn't a complete cluster muck that you're like, oh, which ad is which, that type of thing. You're able to kind of put them all into groups and such. And one of the really cool things they just rolled out over the last couple of weeks was search terms. And search terms was kind of neat. So if you had a broad keyword phrase of, let's say, for instance, your broad keyword phrase was workout plan, and somebody searched up home workout plan for women, and it was done through that broad keyword match. And then you saw a conversion. In other words, someone clicked on your ad based on the broad keyword match of home workout plan, workout plan. And if you saw that conversion, well, good Lord, I would take that specific search term and I would use that as a exact match. So in other words, I'd take that, put it as an exact, and I put it on in there. I kick that bid up high because I know that that thing's going to convert. And that thing has been working like a charm. So keep an eye on AMS. I think that it's going to start to grow, start to expand and such. If you hear me say AMS, formerly known as Amazon Marketing Services, myself and the Kindlepreneur Dave Chesson both agree on this. We're going to still call it AMS. And it's so funny, you actually go over to Amazon Advertising's page, and it actually even refers to itself as AMS in a couple instances. So there is that. I don't know why they changed it to Amazon Advertising. They could have just kept it as Amazon Marketing Services, but that's another conversation for another day. Piece number 9 here. ACX does additions, and they have some issues. So the additions to this thing is they actually changed the entire promo code system. And if you were exclusive to ACX, then you were allowed to actually have upwards of about 100 promotional codes per audiobook through the US and the UK. Originally, you could just order, I think it was like 25 per region at a time, and you can do it up to 4 times. But they just, for some reason, and I can only do speculation on this, they decided, okay, that system wasn't quite working. It was kind of an all-out free-for-all. So they switched over to a new promotional code system in which you didn't have to request it. It actually was inside your dashboard. And you can actually get those promotional codes. You can track those promotional codes and use them for whatnot. And what originally you could do with those codes, and this is too little too late if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go ahead and do this now. I don't think it works now. But at any rate, the old promotional codes, you didn't have to just use it on your specific audiobook. You could just go over and use it on just about any audiobook on Audible, which was crazy. So you had people going just on a free-for-all, and they would take a bunch of their promotional codes, stock them up, and then put it on a compilation, which was extremely expensive, and then they would profit tens of thousands of dollars per month, okay? So there's a little bit of a scam or hack that people were doing, and I think that's probably where, like, they said enough's enough. So now the promotional codes are to where when somebody actually goes and redeems the code, they're automatically given the book. So there's no, let me look for the book and just go ahead and use the promotional code. No. They automatically give you the book. So if the promotional code is redeemed, you get the audiobook, enough said. Which I think is a better system, because the promotional codes, despite what ACX used to say, was like, well, some people were saying, I don't know, inside the ACX headquarters, and other people were like, no, it isn't. They actually had monetary value. In other words, when somebody cashed it in, you got paid a credit for each one of those things, like it was an Audible member. And that was kind of nice. But again, you had these scammers that came in, stockpiled a bunch of codes, and they would wait until they had a compilation, get people to cash them in all on the compilation. So it was a bigger paycheck, and, yay, hooray. So that's what leads us to the issues. And earlier this year, and it started right about February to March time, ACX brought their hammer down, and they started freezing accounts one after the other after the other. Now, some of them said, we noticed you're gaming the system and using the promotional codes in a manipulative way. And then other times they were just ambiguous. They just pretty much like, we're freezing your account until, further review. So yeah, they started sensing an issue, and I actually had a number of indie authors that reached out to me like, what do I do? Why did this happen? And I'm like, I don't have any insiders over ACX, sadly. But here's the thing. ACX only honors the regions of US, UK, Canada, and Ireland. If you are outside of those regions, you should not be setting up an ACX account. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be regionalist. I don't mean to be, like, well, hey, if you're from Italy, you can't be publishing books on ACX. That's not my rule. That's something ACX put out. And I would recommend, if you're outside those 4 regions, publish through other audiobook distribution platforms, including Findaway Voices or even Authors Republic, who uses Findaway Voices. You got to start to think about other avenues, because you start to run into some issues, and it comes down to sometimes tax laws. And if ACX doesn't have some type of tax laws, or tax, for lack of better words, because I'm not a tax expert, you guys can tell I'm starting to like, ugh. Either way, they don't have something set up in place for a given region. They can't just start handing out business to these different regions without having it set up. Hence why it's taken so long for them to get things. It took a while before they actually had something beyond US and UK. Canada and Ireland rolled out, I think it was last year. So it's going to probably take some time. These other regions are going to start to fill out. You just got to hang in there or use the other avenues. They work just fine, folks. And you can still get Audible distribution if that's the issue. You won't get as much, but at least you'll avoid having your account frozen. And so I'm just going to tell you this, that this is speculation on my part. This is my opinion. This is not 100% fact. Okay, I don't know for sure that ACX is closing these accounts, but each person has told me that they had an account frozen. All of them shared this in common. They are not in the US, UK, they're not in Canada, they're not in Ireland. And some of them were trying to actually say that there were US-based businesses when they weren't. They were just using reship addresses. It doesn't work that way, folks. Alrighty, I do have one last little thing from the year that I want to kind of reflect on. And before we do break into that, I just want to let you know, going into 2020, we're still going to be broadcasting every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube at dalelinks.com/live. You want to come join me every Saturday. It's always a blast talking with everybody. And of course, join me every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/self-publish, where we actually record the podcast, and actually you can subscribe for free over on Twitch with your Amazon Prime membership. You can visit the link of dalelinks.com/Twitch Prime to find out exactly how you can do that. Greatly helps the show, and I always appreciate the support. All right, so I did 10 good items. I got to admit, the Vellum one was kind of weak, but it was one of the ones I just kind of thought of. No pun to you here, Vellum. But at any rate, so the last but not least one, I think this is the most exciting one, and this is why I've been trumpeting them for a while. And it's actually Findaway Voices grows massively. Findaway Voices is an audiobook distribution platform. They're actually an aggregate publisher that goes out to 41 different avenues. And this includes those big 3 that ACX distributes to, including Audible and Amazon and Apple. And here's the cool thing, is the Apple distribution agreement is actually better than ACX. Instead of getting 25% through ACX, you get 45% royalty. It's a 20% bump in things. And just think, that's how much you get from retail on ACX, 25%. If you're doing, say, for instance, a 50-50 royalty split, you're only going to get 20% of that 25%. And if you've got full rights, you only get 40% of that 25%. But if you go through Findaway Voices, you can get 80%. That's right, 80% of 45%. Let me break it down for you. Findaway Voices, you're going to make more money for Apple iBooks. I'm going to go with that option every single time. And Findaway Voices started adding just dozens of platforms on their distribution platform. I actually visited their headquarters back in September, just before my birthday, and they were so awesome. They took me around the facility, and they have big plans. That's all I can say. I can't, indulge, or I can't divulge. I said indulge. I'm good with words today. I'm not going to divulge exactly what they shared with me, but there are some really, really cool things coming out for Findaway Voices. And there's good reason why I'm going so bullish on them, because I see some great potential that's going to really create some disruption here in the self-publishing industry, and especially over into audiobooks, most importantly. Alrighty, so those were the 10 items I wanted to kind of cover today. I do have a little bit of a small ask, if you don't mind. Actually, subscribe or follow me on your preferred podcast platform and leave a review. I actually said the last 3 friggin' weeks that I was going to talk about some of the reviews that were left, And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read one of the reviews, and I'll save another one for the very next week. And this actually comes from Apple Podcasts. Actually, all of them come from Apple Podcasts so far. Been following you on YouTube for some time. Glad you're spreading the info on podcast format. This comes from PVP. So glad you're doing a podcast. Well, thank you very much, PVP. I appreciate it. Big shout out to you. I do appreciate the support. I'll read another review coming into the next week. So if you want to be featured, by all means, go ahead and leave a review. And you can leave it on any of these platforms, and it comes right over here to my inbox, and I can actually see that. So as we start to wrap up 2019, again, just a gentle reminder, I'm going to be taking a 2-week break from podcasting. But rest assured, I'm going to be back on it first of 2020. And it's going to be an amazing year. It's going to be an amazing decade ahead of us. And I hope that you join me for the ride. And if you have been writing with me either just now or you've been doing it for the past few years, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that. It's crazy to think that I'm just this indie author that decided just to go ahead and start sharing my enthusiasm for self-publishing. And some of you decided to kind of come along with me for the ride. So big thank you to you. I'm living this weird dream, but it's a dream I never imagined, and I'm just glad that you are with me. So in the meantime, this has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I will talk to you next year.